welcome to the Celtic Cast On podcast. My name is Kelly and I'm coming to you from the treehouse in the beautiful east coast of Canada. And today is Labor Day, September 6th, 7th. I think it's the 7th. This is episode 25 and as you can see, it's kind of turning into fall here. It's still warm during the day, but it's not warm like summer warm. It's warm like coolish warm. The sun is out, but it's still coolish. So if you are new here, thank you for checking me out for the first time. And if you're coming back, welcome back. And thanks for joining me again. Today I have some knitting to show you. I have some FOs, some whips, some quilting, some sewing, and of course some book reviews. So I think, I wonder if I have any life. I do. The last 5 weeks, my husband and I have been renovating our kitchen. And by renovating, I mean 5 weeks ago, I took a sledgehammer and gutted it. And we've been putting it back ever since. So we have been wanting to do the kitchen forever, basically since we moved in, but we knew it was going to be expensive. Oh, hello, little birdie. We knew it was going to be expensive, and we knew it wasn't going to be the first thing on our list because our kitchen was livable. It was just back in the 80s. So we needed to bring it more modern and up to date, and that's what we did. So I will put some pictures in here of our sweat equity that we put into the kitchen. It's all now white. We've got butcher-bought countertops. Really happy with it, and I kind of get really excited when I go in the kitchen now, which was definitely not something that I did before. So yeah, I've been kind of quiet on the Western Front because I've been, like I said, I gutted the whole kitchen. We've been building cabinets, putting it all back together again, and doing the finishing touches. So there's still a few paint things to do, but other than that, it's done. And it's a good thing because I start work tomorrow, and one of my children go back to school tomorrow, and Miss Myler will go back to preschool next week. So we're glad to have it all done pretty much and under us so we can move on with our fall. So I guess let's start with some knitting. I may as well talk about the FO in the room. I finished my Wythop sweater. This is by Sari Northland, and it is part of the Fiber Company's, one of their collections. It was the Foundations AW. I'm not sure what AW stands for, but Foundations AW 19 to 20 collection. And this was the Wythop sweater from it. So the sweater is knit bottom up, and for the longest time I had knit 2 sleeves bottom up, and I had them sitting on waste yarn, and I just needed to start the body and go with it. But it was actually before even COVID started that I had it. I think it was last fall that I started it. But with work, it was just something that I couldn't even pick it up because I'd have to think about what I needed to do. The kids were gone. The kids were gone to their grandparents. And I just sat down and I said, you know what? I'm going to bang out this sweater. Well, I neglected to remember that my sweater was knit on 3.5 millimeter needles, and it was going to take me a lot longer than the time the kids were gone to knit the sweater. So I did start it. I started the ribbing. The ribbing, which is a nice detail, is twisted rib, which I love. So it's twisted rib on the hem as well, and knit straight up to here. It was way too short for my body. I have a very long torso, and so when I had finished knitting to the requirements, it barely came to the top of my pants, so I knew that wasn't going to work. So I think I added maybe 4 inches. I'm not sure. I'd have to double check that. So I added the length there, and then I just knit everything as is in pattern. And if I get a little closer for you, you can see the texture on the yoke. Let's see how I'm going to do this. So it has little baubles, if you can see them, and then it has lace on either side to make like a V shape. Hopefully you can see that. So the yarn I used is Rowan felted tweed, and this is I had previously knit this into a cardigan, the Manu cardigan by Kate Davies, a long time ago, and I just wasn't wearing it anymore, so I decided to rip it and knit it into something that I would use more. And that's the great thing about knitting in yarn, is that you can change it whenever you feel like you don't like that style anymore, it doesn't suit you anymore, maybe it doesn't fit anymore, and knit something else. I did think I was going to run out of yarn. I got to about here on the collar and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to run out of yarn. And I contacted someone locally and I tried to find it on Ravelry, but I couldn't. And I said, you know what? I have these little pieces and I'm just going to knit with it, and I'll weave in the ends and just hope that I get to the end of it. And I did. And it was absolutely a shock because I really didn't think that I was going to be able to finish the whole thing. But there's short rows on the back of the neck to bring the back up a little bit, and I really love it. It's not a tight fit. I don't like tight fit anymore. I had gallbladder surgery, I think when T was 3, and part of that was whenever I had a gallbladder attack, everything around my abdomen got really tight. That was where the pain was. And consequently, I can't have anything tight on my body anymore because it simulates that pain again for me. So this is just the right size for me. This is a 34 inch chest, and I just love it. It's roomy in the sleeves, and as you can see, I can wear my collared shirt underneath of it and not have to worry about it being too tight or pulling it down all the time. So that is my wipe up sweater, and I'm so glad that I took the time to get this one finished because I really love it, and I really love the color. One thing that I found that I forgot about with the Rowan felted tweed is that when I finished it and I put it on, I realized how light the Rowan felted tweed actually is. I forgot. It's a DK weight, but you don't feel like you're wearing a sweater. It's not heavy at all. It's not bulky. And I love that about it. And luckily enough for me, I was in one of my yarn shops close to me, and I got another sweater quantity in a blue, I think it's a denim-y blue, or maybe a bit darker. And I got it for 40% off, so I have another sweater quantity. That makes me happy. So I'll be able to find something else to knit that with. So that's my first FO. I may as well keep on going with FOs since I started. This is, let me tell you a story first. In July, we took a little family trip to Petit Rocher, which is a little town up north of New Brunswick, so kind of up on the tip, close to Quebec. And we went up there because the Bathurst area boasts really good trails for four-wheeling, and so we took the side-by-side with us and we went up there and we stayed in a little Airbnb that had, it was a cottage on the water that was in someone's yard. So their house was there, there was a cottage, and there was actually a little mini hobby farm. When I say hobby farm, it was like a pasture with a couple of animals in it. So they had a donkey, which donkeys are my favorite animal of all time. So yeah, that was a pretty much done deal for me. There's a donkey there? Okay, we're going there. So they had a donkey, they had some chickens, they had a duck, they had some geese, and I think that's it. But anyway, the donkey was the big thrill. The donkey's name was Josephine, and the donkey is like a creamy color. I'll put a picture of her here because she's so cute. So our cottage was right off the water, so we could open the door, walk by Josephine, and go right down to the water. So before we left, I knew that I needed a pair of simple socks on the go because all I had was this sweater, another sweater on the go, and I knew I wasn't going to be taking a sweater on a car ride because I wasn't going to want to be thinking, I was just going to want to be knitting. So I got my daughter to go into my yarn stash and I got her to pull out a skein of yarn, and she chose an Arnie and Carlos colorway. Arnie and Carlos did a range for Regia, and one of our yarn stores down here had a huge sale on them, and I think we got them for 40% or half off. So I got I actually got 2 balls of each of the collections, thinking that I'd need 250 grams to make a pair of socks. But normally when I do socks, I do the heels, toes, and cuffs differently, so I only end up needing 150-gram ball. So essentially I have 2 pairs of socks in every colorway ready to knit. So I have knit a few of them in the past, but I let her pick out a new one, and the new one that she picked is this one. And the colorway is called Winter Night. Not exactly what I was hoping that she was going to pick out for summertime knit, but it was perfect, and it was meant to be, because the cream color, which is the Croy, Patton's Croy in muslin that I always use for my heels, toes, and cuffs when I use cream or white. So this is the color of Josephine. The blue and the green, the blue could be the ocean color from our cottage. The green is the woods, because we took our side-by-side into the woods. Another great thing about where we stayed is we were right on the ocean, and you could go 5 minutes down the road and you were in deep woods in the middle of nowhere. So we thought it was pretty neat. But I think that it's really cool that my socks represent our trip. Also, when we were there, we would go down to the beach a lot just to kind of look around. There was lots of sea debris on the shore, lobster claws, tons of seaweed, crabs, like you name it, it was there. And there was a guy there walking along, and we kind of stopped to talk for a second, and he was looking for beach glass, and he lived there, and he said that he combed the beach every day looking for pieces. So I thought, oh gosh, there's beach glass here. I'm going to look for some, because I've never been able to get any before. I've never found any pieces. So while I was there, I found my first piece of beach glass, and it was a tiny little green piece that looked like a shark tooth. But while we were there, we went to another beach down the road that had a playground, and they had blue pieces of beach glass that I found there. So the blue and the green also signify for me beach glass. So these are my Petit Rocher socks, and knit in Arnie and Carlos on my 2.25 carbons. Carbons are the only sock needles that I use, DPNs. The toe is Kay's umbrella toe. Kay Jones from the Bakery Bears, she does an umbrella toe, and that's what I use for those. And then just my heel flap and gusset. For my heel flaps, I do 20 rows instead of 16, because I have a large instep right here. I find it's very wide, and those extra 4 rows really help giving me enough space here, and so that this decreased stitch on either side isn't so pulled. So those are my Petit Rocher socks, and a great reminder of our vacation. So the next, I'm gonna get a little drink before I talk anymore. So my next depot is another pair of socks that I was working on the last time we spoke. Just pop them on the blockers here, and I'll be able to tell you about them. So these were the Oakworth socks by Kay Jones that I was knitting out of a sock blank. This was my first sock blank that I had ever knit with, and it's the Stranded Dye Works Plateau in flamingo legs that I was gifted. And if you'll remember, the sock blank had quite a few bits of black thrown in there, and I wasn't really that fond of the black in them. I wanted to just have them more of the corally color. So I kind of pulled the blank apart a little bit. I knit what I could, and then if I got to a black part, I just pulled it out, rolled it up, and I can use that for some kind of a scrappy project, or even another pair of socks that I don't care as much about being having the black in them. But these ones, I wanted them just to have as much of the coral color as possible. So this is Opal. Do I have written down the number? Probably not. I don't. It's gray opal. It comes in a 100-gram skein, and this is Stranded Dye Works in flamingo legs. You can get this just dyed in the skein, but I do find that in the skein, it tends to stripe more with the black as compared to when you're using the sock blank. It was kind of more splashes of color, and it always knits up differently in a blank. So you kind of get what you get when you knit with a sock blank. You don't really know how it's going to turn out. So this was my first sock. This was my second. And although there are bits of black in this one, it's just the best I could do. You kind of just have to go with it when you have a sock blank and hope for the best. But I still like them. I think they're really pretty. And you can see that they have this garter tab going all the way down either side of the sock. So again, 2.25 carbons, and these are really quick. They came off the needles really quick. Another great thing about this pattern that I like, that I don't think I've ever tried it before. This is just the heel flap and gusset again with the rib, but look on the side of the heel flap, you can see this garter ridge that goes all the way down. It's 3 or 4 stitches, and I really love that touch to them. I thought it was a nice touch, and it kind of keeps in the theme of this garter ridge here. This toe is more of a rounded toe, but again, it's not the umbrella toe that I did this time. It was just the one that was in the pattern. So that's my third FO. Wow, doing good today. We have one more FO to show you. And can you guess? It's another pair of socks. Now this pair of socks I didn't start until after I had podcast the last time, so you won't have seen these before. This was a test knit that I did for Emma of Bloom and Create. And when I saw it on Instagram, I thought, oh my gosh, I really want to knit those. We have friends that live in Arizona, and these are going to be dubbed my Arizona socks. And you'll see why in a second. So these are my Arizona socks. Aren't they cute? If I can get the sun out of there, oh my goodness. There. These are called the Comfy Cacti socks by Bloom and Create. And this is, the main color is leftovers from my crunkled socks that I knit with Sweet Skein of Mine in the Do Not Kill My Vibe colorway, and I had just enough to make these socks. Originally, the pattern kind of, if I was going by the pattern, you would take this color and knit it all the way down through here, and while I started to do that, it was a leftover and I ran out, so I had to pull all of this back up, and then I had to re-knit it with the different color. So I think it looks okay. Different than what the pattern calls for, but I still like them. So Sweet Skein of Mine, the sand color is Wandering Cat Yarns in English Toffee. Wandering Cat Yarns no longer dyes yarn, and that was a leftover that I had knit from another pair of socks. And this one, I don't know the yarn. I've had it forever, and it was a huge skein. It was like 460 yards. And I had knit one sock with it, and then I'd never knit the second sock. So I still have, I think, enough yarn to knit a full pair of socks with it. It has a garter stitch heel, which I thought was different. It provides less structure to the socks than what I'm used to, and it created a wider sock because the bottom of the base of your heel is wider as well. So I'm not sure that I'm sold on this. It fits fine. But I don't know what it's going to be like after washes, and I may just stick to my ribbing sock for future, but it worked well with this. And then it kind of fades into the toe again, and that's just a regular toe. So those are my Comfy Cacti socks. Pretty pleased with them. And that's available Bloom.create. You can check her out on Instagram, Ravelry. Not sure if she has a separate website, but you can definitely check her out on Instagram. So those are my FOs. Sock blockers away. So let's do some whips. So as I told you, work is starting tomorrow, and I needed something pretty simple to have at work for my lunch. I don't have a long time for lunch, so sometimes I don't even get to touch anything else. But if I do have something simple, it's nice to have. So also, because of COVID, I didn't want to take my nice project bags to work because I'm kind of iffy about what's going to be happening when we start. So this is a bag that I made quite a while ago. Here's the sun flare again. I almost need to move this way a little bit. I wonder if I can move this over. There, we'll see if that works. So this is a bag that I made a long time ago, and I'm not worried that I'm going to ruin a really expensive bag that's been made. So it will stay in my bag, and I have chosen another skein of Arnie and Carlos. I kind of want to get through the whole range, and because you can't really do anything else with the yarn because it's self-striping, I thought it would be a great yarn to take to work. These are also, Arnie and Carlos yarns tend to be a bit thicker, and so I really like to wear them in the winter. They're really cozy. So I wanted to get more of them knit up so I'd have more to wear. So this is what the ball band looks like. Yeah. And this colorway is 36.55, and I believe that's what it's going to look like. Oh, good. Now you can see it that well. But it is called Fall Night, and I didn't even know. I just picked from the color that I wanted to knit, and it ended up being Fall Night, so that was kind of a fluke. So here's what I've started. Originally, I wanted to get the cuff done so that I could have just a plain leg to knit while I was at work, and I kind of got ahead of myself as usual. So here's what I've got done so far. Again, it's the Patons Croy sock in the muslin colorway, and I did twisted rib on the top, and that's the colorway how it's coming out. I really love this colorway. And I finished the heel flap actually. I'm just about to start the heel turn. So I'm doing them, and they might be a little bit smaller in the leg. Oh no. Smaller in the cuff, I guess, but longer in the leg. They work out to be about the same size. So again, those are on my carbons. I love my carbons. The only sock needles that I really use. And here's the rest of it in the ball too that you can see. I love this colorway. So that's my first whip. We'll see what happens with those. My only other whip that I've got for knitting right now is my other sweater that I am determined to get done because there are two other sweaters that I want to start, but I am not starting them until I finish this sweater. Otherwise it will never get finished. And I really do like this sweater. I want to finish it. So this is the Ridgely sweater. Do I have written down who it's by? Probably not. I can't remember. I'll put it down here. Or it might be linked below. This is the Ridgely sweater. Now I had knit the entire body of this and part of one sleeve. And the design is such that is it called Princess, where it kind of just goes out from your chest. Anyway, it ended up being too big on me and looked like a potato sack. So I didn't like the potato sack look on me. It made me look like I was swimming in it. So I ripped back to the underarms because it was a top-down knit, and I could just rip back to here, and I'm restarting it again. So I'm going to do less increases and less stitches around, and hopefully that will give me more of a mainstream sweater. So as you can see, I've got part of the sleeve done, and then you can see that beautiful feather and fan stitch that goes down the middle. Now this is knit with Classic Elite Sky Tweed, which is a long discontinued yarn, but I have knit another sweater in it, and I really love it. It's one of my faves. So I was excited to have this brown color, which I don't even think I can see the color numbers. They've all rubbed off. But yeah, I do love it. It's a tweedy yarn once again. I do love a good tweed. See the flex. I'm knitting this with 5mm, 5mm cubics. Cubics are the square needles. You see that those are square. And I was hesitant to try these. Someone actually sent me these. I think it was the Little Lee. She didn't like them and she offered them to someone, and so I paid her postage and she sent them to me, which was very kind of her, and I really love them. If I have a 5mm project and these are available, these are the ones that I use. They're really easy on your hands. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. So hopefully next podcast I will have this sweater finished to show you and maybe started a new one. That would be amazing. Because these two sweaters have been on needles way too long. So those are my knitting whips. Let's move on to some quilting. So this summer, my daughter T and I, we took a trip to a fabric store called the Fabric Cupboard. This fabric store to me is like Candyland. There's so many options and so many beautiful and modern fabrics that I can't really get around here. So it was really hard to be really good in that store. So not only did I find fabric in that store, but my daughter found fabric in that store. And she is determined that she's going to make her first quilt. Who am I to stop you? So this is the fabric that she found, that she fell in love with. It is called Dragonfly Dream, and it's a Hoffman Spectrum print. So Dragonfly Dream, and you can see how beautiful it is. It was so it's an expensive fabric, and so I told her that I was only going to buy half of a yard of it, and whatever we could make out of it, we would do, and then we'll use other fabrics around it. But this will kind of be the focal point. And I have really botched this up. Trying to fold it back up. But I think it's an extra wide, so it's a little bit longer than your normal quilting fabric, which is good because for the price it was definitely hard on the pocketbook. So that's the first fabric, and then we decided to go with this fabric to complement it and maybe go around the blocks so that it would kind of look like this. And this one has a sparkle. It's like a silver sparkle in it. I'm not sure what fabric this is. Do I have a... Oh, I do. This is another Hoffman fabric. Hoffman fabric, screen print. It just says style G8555. Is that really the name? It's the only thing I see on there. Hoffman Fabrics. I will show you. So they had it in all kinds of colors, and we entertained a light blue color because of the wings here, but she really liked this one. So we're going to go with this to go around the blocks, and maybe a black on the outside, but we might need another fabric in between. So we'll see what she decides when we get it cut out. So that was her fabric choice. So the great thing about going into that store is that they cut their collections into fat quarters, and they always have bins kind of underneath the collections of fat quarters that you can choose from. So when I was scouring the fat quarters, which is the first thing I go for when I go in there, I found a collection and I really like the colors. But it's not often that I like the colors and I like the print of the fabrics. Sometimes I love the colors and then it's like trucks or, I don't know, kitchen utensils on the fabric, and it's not really something that I go for. But this collection I did love, and I love the fabric and I love the colors. So I knew that I had to get a bunch of the fat quarters to make a quilt. And I knew right away that it was going to be an Emily Dennis quilt because I have bought a few of hers already and I just love her aesthetic. So I chose the pattern Quilty Stars, which you will see right here. And this is the fabric that I chose for it. And it's called Geometric. No. And it's called Geometry by Moda. By Janet Clare, I believe, is the designer. So as you can see, the geometric shapes. It's not all of the fat quarters that I got, but it's just what I've used in the square so far. But I really love them all together. They're so pretty. So I'm knitting, as I said, Emily Dennis's Quilty Squares, Quilty Stars. So I'll be adding half square triangles to make the points on this block. It's not complete yet, but that's one of them. Yeah, so I'm very excited about that, and I'm very excited about this fabric. I really love it. So this is definitely a me quilt, staying with me. Also, while I was there, they also, like I said, they cut up fat quarters and put them into bins. They also do these great bundles. They take fat quarters from the collection and they wrap it up into a bundle and sell it as a bundle. Well, I saw this one and I really loved the colors. And I was gonna leave it behind, and then she said, you know what? This is a really great price for this. It's a lot cheaper than it should be, and it's the last one that we have. So yeah, I took it. So this is my fat quarter ring. You can see the mushrooms there from the fabric cupboard. So I'm excited to put that one into something as well, but it's going to stay in this beautiful bundle. And there are, it says 22 fat quarters in this one. So it's going to make a good quilt as well. So those were our purchases. And one of my quilt starts. I have another quilt whip and I want to show you what it is. This one you might have seen before because I have started it a long time ago, and when I was cleaning out the craft room, I found it in pieces and I said, you know what, I really want to get this finished. So this quilt is in a book called Quilting from Every Angle. From Every Angle? Yeah, by Nancy Purvis. You may have seen me talk about this before because this book is from the library and I've got it out quite a few times to start this quilt, and I just haven't got it finished yet. So this is, I've renewed it once already, so I'm going to get it done this time. So let me show you. It's not this quilt, although I do love this one. It's actually the first quilt that I really loved that I wanted to quilt. And I started it and I ran out of fabric, I think, and I didn't finish it. So it's Sequoia quilt. And this is the only picture they have of it in the book, which is kind of sucky because it doesn't really show you the whole quilt. And I don't want to show you the pattern of it. But it's half square triangles and full triangles, and it kind of makes a geometric design like this one. So let me show you the colors I'm using. These are all Bella Solids. So I'm using Zen Gray, Cheddar, White, and I don't remember what this one is, but these are the colors all together, which I think are going to go really well. I love mustard yellow, so this is going to be it's going to be a throw size, whereas the Quilty Squares I think is going to be big enough. I'm going to be able to make it big enough for a queen. I think I'll have enough blocks. So it will be on my bed. I'm excited. I don't have a quilt on my bed, so that'll be the first one. So those are my quilting whips, no FOs. Oh, I do have one sewing FO though. This is laughable as a sewing FO. When I first started to sew, I had a machine that I bought from Canadian Tire. For those of you that don't live in Canada, Canadian Tire it's hilarious that I bought a sewing machine at Canadian Tire because it's a car shop. It kind of has everything. It has cleaning supplies. It has pots and pans. It has snow apparel. It has bicycles. It has hockey equipment. It has electrical. It has paint, it has plumbing supplies, anything to fix your car with. Yeah, it's just a kind of a catch-all. So before, when I was young and didn't know any better, I bought a sewing machine. I think it was, I'm gonna say $30 or $40 at Canadian Tire. And I took the sewing machine to my local quilt shop during a night when a lady came and she would help you with any sewing project you were working on. So there were some people quilting. There were some people who had never done anything before, and that was me. So she had a tickle trunk of fabric, which was exciting for me. And she had, I don't know the exact name of it, but it's like, what is the word I'm thinking of? It's like batting that you can sew right onto, like a quilt as you go type of thing. So she started me out with this piece of batting, and I was just sewing strips diagonally onto it, one after the other. So it was a quilt as you go. So I didn't need to quilt it afterwards. It was all quilted. But that sewing machine, let me tell you, was junk. I couldn't sew through anything. It wasn't keeping stitches right. She couldn't figure out what was going on with it. So I said, you know what? I'm going to take this and I'm going to come back when I have a better machine. And that's when I saved up and I bought my Janome. And things have been going so much better ever since. But also when I was cleaning up my craft room, I found my first project that I did there, and it wasn't finished. So I finished it. It's a little zipper bag, and it's far from perfect, but it's finished, and I will use it for something. But I thought it was kind of neat of how we did the corner to corner. Now you can see that my machine, this side's pretty good actually. I'll show you this side. But this side, you can see where the stitches kind of were coming apart. And I might have not have caught everything right on the sides, but I love it, and I love my colors, and it's kind of a testament to my first sewing project. You can see the inside. It even has a lining, sparkly black lining. So I'll use it for something, and I'll always remember my Canadian Tire sewing machine. So that is all of the crafting I have. I'm going to get a little sip of water, and I'm going to tell you about my book reviews. All right, I'm going to start with one that I just finished. This one was called The Night Portrait, and it's by Laura Morelli. $14.92 in Milan. It follows Cecilia Gallerini, who they believe is the girl in the Lady with the Ermine painting that Leonardo da Vinci has painted. So it follows her in the royal court, and then Leonardo da Vinci and his coming to the court and his work during his time at court, which was shocking to me because I didn't actually realize he was in the Milan court at all. So that was a new twist for me. And then it follows Edith Becker in 1939, and as well as an American Army soldier as well. So Edith is an art conservator, so someone who fixes pieces of arts and restores them. And her love of art has been passed down from her father. Now, when the war hits, the Nazis decide that they are going to take all of the best paintings in Europe, all of the most well-known paintings from families who have purchased them and who they actually belong to. They're going to take them all and they're going to put them all in a museum that Hitler is starting, and all of the famous pieces are going to be there. So they basically don't ask Edith, they tell her that she is going to be making a list of these paintings and she's going to be going and finding them and bringing them back to the museum. So it kind of follows the painting of the Lady with the Ermine and why Leonardo painted it, who it was, and their place in the court. The American soldier comes into it because he has been asked to be part of the Monuments of Men, which is a group that, again, I knew nothing about. They were tasked to find these great paintings because they knew that the Nazis were taking everything. They are tasked to find these great paintings and artifacts, whatever it is that is of great value, and find them and bring them back to safety so that they can keep them from the Nazis. So it was an interesting read. It was completely new to me about Leonardo da Vinci, and learning about monuments of men and having the court in there as well as the wartime. It was really different. I thought it was hard to get into because the two stories were so very different, and the chapters were so small. It flipped back and forth very quickly between one of these four people, and at first you're trying to figure out who all of these four people are and how they're connected. I don't know, I just found it hard to focus on what was happening. Things really picked up for me about 60% through the book, and from there on I really enjoyed it. But I found it kind of slow going at first and thought, I don't know, it was a bit lacking in the beginning. So I'm giving it a 3.5 stars, but I will let you decide what you give it when you check it out. The second one is called Her Patriotic Duty by Rosie Meddon, Meddon. This one was a great read, and it gave me another new insight into a new side of the SOE that I had never heard of before. So these were this was about the decoy women. So Esme Ward, she was set to marry a Richard Trevanion, who was very well-to-do in society, as was her family in England. And the night before their wedding, her mother decides to tell her that she's not actually part of the family, that she has been adopted, and that she comes from a working class. So of course Esme is distraught, and she decides that, gosh, she can't marry him because it would be deceiving him, and she's not from the money that he thought she was from, etc., etc. So she takes off, she runs away. And while she is boarding at an elderly lady's house, she decides she needs to find a job. She's approached by someone, given a card, and said, if you are looking for a job, call this number. And so, unbeknownst to her, she has no idea what she's going for, but she ends up landing a job with as an SOE, a secret agent officer, for Churchill. And she is sent to another part of England, and she's worked as a decoy woman. So she is put into a position where a new SOE officer or agent is tested to see if they are true and if they're going to basically spill the beans on what their job is and what they're doing. So she meets these people, tries to get information out of them and see if they're going to willingly give it or not, and then she writes a report on them and sends it back to the upper powers. There were a few parts to the story that I felt were cut really short. I felt like they could have extended it a little bit farther, but all in all, a really enjoyable read, and 4-star for me. The next one is kind of a different read for me. It's another historical fiction, but it's a mystery, and it was called A Dangerous Goodbye by Fliss Chester. And although a mystery isn't something I generally go for, I was kind of intrigued by the little blurb reading of what it was about, so I thought I'd give it a go. I'm glad I did because I really enjoyed it. There were quite a few twists and turns, and it's actually #1 of the Fenchurch mysteries, so I will be interested to see future books that come from this. So it's set in 1944. The lead character is Fenella, and she is a land girl in England. Now, Fen and her fiance Arthur are both avid crossword and puzzle fiends, and they are always trying to work out puzzles together. He is sent to France on an undercover operation, but he sends back a cryptic letter to her, and she knows that there's something in there that she has to figure out what's going on and where he is. So she kind of starts to decode it herself, and she realizes that she needs to go to France to see where he is and what has happened to him. So it isn't until she gets there that things really start ramping up, but I'm not even going to go into that because you need to read it to find out. This was a quick read for me. I found my mind wandering during the day, kind of thinking, oh, I wonder what's happening to Fenella now, or I wonder if that's what's really happening, or if this is part of the puzzle, or lovable characters and some characters that you really don't like. But that's part of a good book, right? The cryptic message had me curious all the way through, and I really enjoyed it. So 4 stars from me, and I think you should definitely check this one out. I have a few more book reviews, but I think I'm going to save some for next podcast, just in case my reading slows down, as I expect it will during the fall. So I think that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for joining me in the treehouse. Hopefully I'll have another treehouse edition before it gets too cold and too windy up here, because I really do love podcasting up here. It's very pretty. So thank you so much for joining me. If you have any comments or questions, add them below because I'd love to hear from you. And you can find me on Instagram and Ravelry if you have it as Celtic Cast On. Thanks so much and have a great day. Bye.